Revealed, the amazing nanny who transformed the Millionaire CEO's twins after 4 failed attempts. John Parker sat in his opulent office, a world of glass and steel towering around him, yet the weight on his shoulders felt heavier than any boardroom deal. With each tick of the clock, he felt the insatiable pressure of expectations crushing him. His tech empire, built from sheer determination and sleepless nights, glinted mockingly at him as he reflected on his home life, a hurricane of chaos and disconnection. The laughter that once filled his halls had dimmed, overshadowed by the piercing tantrums of Ethan and Olivia, his 10-year-old twins whose rebellion felt like a personal indictment. For elite nannies had come and gone, each one unable to tame the wildness that had taken root in his children's hearts, as if they were responding to their father's relentless ambition with outright defiance. In those moments, he hesitated. Was he truly successful if his children felt like strangers? He wiped his brow, the labor of decision weighing down like an anchor, slicing through his thoughts. The accolades and power he had built shifted uncomfortably in his gut. What was it all worth if his children craved his attention more than he longed for a new venture? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Maya, the 5th nanny, had entered the scene with a warmth that was reminiscent of sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Her humble background resonated with what was missing in his life: real connection. As she engaged with Ethan and Olivia with unconventional games and emotional resonance, John felt an unfamiliar pang of hope. Yet, out there, in board meetings, he battled his own demons. The looming deadline for a critical project fused with anxiety, forcing him to confront both the financial and personal stakes. With each success in the corporate realm came an unforgiving reality: the more he achieved, the less he connected with his children. A knot twisted in his chest whenever he thought of the missed moments, the birthdays and school plays that had been drowned by the allure of profit margins. The twins were thriving under Maya, their laughter once again becoming the soundtrack to his home, but with that joy came stark reminders of his absence. John's mind spiraled as tension escalated. A sudden crisis involving Ethan, desperate to impress his peers, had concocted a mischief that spiraled out of control, threatened to shatter everything Maya had attempted to build. In the heart of his high-stakes world, John was faced with the clarity of what he had long ignored: his children were not the problem, he was. Now, at this pivotal moment, he stood frozen, torn between the lure of newfound paternal affection and the relentless call of corporate success. As he felt the tightening constriction around him, he breathed sharply, realizing that he teetered on the precipice of a decision with repercussions he hadn't anticipated. One revelation from Ethan, a pleading little voice seeking validation, hung in the balance, compelling him to confront the truth he had been avoiding. Would he step back into the role of father, or allow his ambition to come crashing down like the towers he had so mammothly erected? The weight of this moment pressed down as he stood at the crossroads, grasping for clarity in a life now haunted by paradox. The morning light filtered through the glass walls of John's office, casting fractured shadows that mimicked the turbulence within him. With both hands braced against the cool surface of his desk, he fought the rising tide of anxiety. This was the moment he had both feared and longed for, the opportunity to redefine himself not just as a CEO, but as a father. The thought both exhilarated and terrified him. If I don't change, how can I expect them to? He muttered to himself, feeling the weight of the words settle heavily in the air. Determination coursed through his veins as he turned away from his desk, resolving to confront the chaos. With each step across the plush carpet, he visualized the likely scenarios. Would Ethan still be upset? Would Olivia welcome him back with open arms, or would she retreat behind her walls of mistrust? As he descended the spiraling staircase towards the living quarters, the cacophony of toys and clamoring voices grew louder, igniting a flicker of nervous energy within him. Entering the playroom, he was struck by a scene that seemed both foreign and familiar. Ethan and Olivia sat cross-legged on the floor, a world of colors and laughter enveloping them. And there was Maya, guiding them like a maestro pacing through a symphony, her laughter mingling with theirs. In that instant, John observed an exchange that eclipsed every boardroom negotiation he had ever mastered. For the first time, He felt like an outsider looking through a glass shroud while vibrant life unfolded before him. Something flickered inside, a burning realization. The connection they shared was imbued with a magic that his success could never replicate. Suddenly, he felt the urgent need to join them. "Hey, kids!" His voice came out stronger than he expected, drawing their attention like a magnet. The twins paused, playfully questioning their sudden turn of fate. For a heartbeat, he stood there, uncertainty harboring amidst his resolve. "Whatcha doing?" he asked, feigning a casualness that belied the storm inside. "Building a spaceship," Ethan exclaimed, his eyes alight with enthusiasm. "Want to help?" John's heart raced as he dropped to the floor, drawing close to the scene. The invitation felt like a lifeline thrown amidst turbulent waters. "Absolutely. But where do I start?" An exchange unfolded, facilitated deftly by Maya, who observed quietly, giving him the space to engage. They started crafting pieces from an array of building blocks, and with every connection he made, John felt a pulse of euphoria. He was creating something tangible with his children, forming bonds where nothing but tension had lain before. Later that day, that sense of unity ignited a thought he couldn't shake. What if he implemented the same strategies he used in boardrooms to win deals into connecting with his children? Could empathy become a currency to seal familial bonds? That idea hit him like a spark of electricity, shifting his perspective fundamentally. Yet, even as John savored the early victories, an unsettling doubt lingered. Would efforts to redirect his focus be enough to reverse years of neglect? He felt the shadows of his decisions creeping back. For the first time, he didn't recoil but met that doubt head-on. "I will not repeat the past," he resolved silently as he made plans to orchestrate a series of family activities aimed at re-establishing his role. But as night fell, paralyzing fear assailed him. What if the past was insurmountable? He closed his laptop and stared into the dark, knowing that the challenge of becoming the father he yearned to be had only just begun, the journey rife with obstacles. Out there, in the maze of business and ambition, the real battle churned. John had to face the most challenging opponent he had ever met, his own ingrained habits and the urge to retreat into old patterns. The distance between ambition and connection felt like a chasm. Could he bridge it before it swallowed him whole? The next day promised a confrontation unlike any he had faced in the corporate world, a gut-wrenching test of his resolve. Would he rise to meet his children, or would he fall back into the comforting embrace of ambition? The stakes felt higher than any deal he had ever orchestrated, and as John braced himself for the challenge ahead, he sensed that the moment of truth was fast approaching. John awoke the next morning shrouded in a fog of uncertainty, the promise of a fresh start hanging in the air like a tightly wound spring ready to unravel. As he prepared breakfast, stiffening his resolve for the family's planned day out, a quiet voice in his mind whispered doubts. Would his attempts at engagement come across as genuine, or would they merely seem like a hollow performance? He poured cereal into bowls while keeping glances towards the living room, seeking reassurance in the sight of the twins' smiles. The moment before they entered the kitchen felt fragile, almost sacred, as if everything hinged on these first impressions. When Olivia and Ethan finally ventured into the space, their laughter echoed, and John's heart swelled despite the gnawing fear at his gut. "Hey, you two ready for a day at the park?" he asked, hoping his voice projected confidence and warmth. Ethan's eyes sparkled, but Olivia remained cautious, her smile tinged with the skepticism that John had come to expect. As if sensing his tumult, she asked, "What's the plan, Dad?" Her question was matter-of-fact yet inquisitive, as if waiting to assess his sincerity. In that moment, John realized he had a decision to make, not just for the day but for the kind of father he wanted to be. "We'll start with a picnic, then maybe we can play some games," he replied, keeping his tone light. "I'm thinking about a family obstacle course. You up for it?" Ethan jumped up, fists raised in excitement. Olivia hesitated, scanning her brother's enthusiasm and her father's expectant gaze. "Okay, I guess," she said slowly, but John detected a flicker of curiosity, a small crack in the wall she had built around her heart. With a tenuous plan set, John took a deep breath, consciously shifting his approach. This wasn't just about orchestrating activities, he needed to turn them into shared experiences, moments that could nurture connections. The drive to the park felt like a curveball, both exhilarating and intimidating. They were stepping into a world John could barely navigate. As they arrived, he watched as Ethan raced ahead, while Olivia hung back, meticulously observing her surroundings. John felt that familiar pull of societal pressure to perform, a nagging urge to impress others who might cross their path, but he forced out those thoughts. "Hey, Liv," he called, kneeling low to her level. "Want to help me set up the picnic?" Her hesitation broke for merely a second as she approached, still somewhat guarded. "Okay," she replied softly, and together they unfolded the checkered blanket and placed sandwiches and fruit on it, creating their small haven within the park's vastness. Yet, as the day unfolded, John felt unexpected tensions rise. His best intentions were thwarted when a gust of wind knocked over a juice box, splattering sticky fruit drink across the blanket. John's first instinct was to scold his son, a habit he recognized too well. But a resolve flickered, grounding him in the moment. "It's just juice. Let us clean it up together," he said, biting back the reflexive sharpness. Ethan and Olivia joined forces in the cleanup effort, their laughter bursting forth amid their struggle to wrangle the errant box. The ease of their laughter melted John's anxiety, revealing a sense of possibility that had long eluded him. Was this what connection felt like? Imperfections and all, laughter intertwined with the messiness of life? Yet, despite small victories, John couldn't shake the creeping fear that hovered in the back of his mind. Each moment of joy came laced with uncertainty. What if the trust he was building crumbled with time? Would they expect more from him than he was ready to give? As the sun set and shadows lengthened across the park, John felt the weight of his internal battle resurfacing, clawing at his determination. Could he maintain this newfound engagement when it came time to face his own shortcomings? The real test awaited around the corner, a heart-to-heart with Olivia, who had grown increasingly silent as the day unfolded, and John sensed her stifled words were rife with unsaid emotions. No walls could shield him from the impending honest conversation. The moment loomed ahead, a precipice that he had no desire to tumble over. Would he have the courage to face her feelings, to confront the reality of their shared past? And as he contemplated this, he wondered silently, could vulnerability really be the gateway to the connection he so desperately sought? John stood on the precipice of vulnerability, staring at Olivia with a mixture of apprehension and determination. Shadows stretched across the park as day surrendered to night, that dimming light echoing the uncertainty he felt within himself. Their laughter had subsided, replaced by a thick silence that felt almost palpable. It was an unspoken acknowledgement of the effort he'd made, but also of the walls that still remained. "Olivia, can we talk?" he asked, his voice steady yet gentle, as he took a step closer. His heart raced. It felt like standing at the edge of a high dive, teetering before the leap. The freckles on her brow furrowed, a sign of her inner conflict. "About what?" she replied, her tone mildly defensive, a reflex he had grown to recognize. John felt a pang in his chest at her guardedness. Her reluctance was an echo of his own fears, a challenge that would require more than a script or a plan. "About today and about everything," he stumbled for words, realizing how inadequate he felt to summarize their complex history. "I want to be here for you and Ethan. I want us to be closer. I know it's not always easy." She shifted awkwardly, her body language a twist of tension. "Things don't just change, Dad," she said quietly, her eyes lowering to the remnants of their picnic spread across the blanket. "You can't just do things and think it's enough." Her honesty struck John more deeply than he had anticipated. He felt the sting of her words like an unexpected splash of cold water, awakening him to the unvarnished truth. He'd approached this day wanting to assuage his own guilt and pave a path to connection, but hadn't he given enough thought to the hearts involved, especially Olivia's? "I know that," he admitted, fighting the rising defensiveness. "This isn't about perfect moments or actions. I just want to be real with you. Even if it's hard." Olivia met his gaze, a flicker of something curiosity or skepticism dancing in her bright eyes. "Being real means talking about things that hurt, right?" she asked, her voice softening. There it was, the crux of his fear laid bare, the possibility that their conversation would reveal deeper issues, perhaps ones he wasn't prepared to face. "Yes," he replied, his voice steadying. "Even if it hurts. I think we owe each other that." The tension hung between them, thick and almost suffocating. John could feel his pulse quickening, an internal battle of wanting to shield her from pain yet knowing that honesty was the only way forward. He took a deep breath, pushing through the discomfort that clawed at him. "I've made mistakes, Olivia. You deserve to know that I regret them, and that I want to learn how to be better. Silence enveloped them as Olivia considered his words. The park had transformed around them, the sounds of children playing fading into a soft backdrop as twilight deepened. What if you don't know how? She asked, her voice small yet powerful. The vulnerability in her question pierced through John, igniting the fear that had clung to him since the morning. I want to know how if I don't try, he countered. None of us are perfect, but we can work through this together. He saw her take a breath, a ripple of hope mingled with the weight of uncertainty. But was this the moment he had prepared for? Or had he only scratched the surface of deeper issues lurking beneath? Olivia's eyes flickered, and a wave of anticipation washed over him as if a door was nudging open just a crack. Okay, she began, but the thought she had started remained unformed, suspended in the air between them. A rising sense of urgency gripped John. The path to understanding lay just ahead, but he was keenly aware that the real turning point was waiting to unfold not just in Olivia's words but in their shared experience, the revelations yet to be uncovered. Would he have the strength to hold on to this fragile moment and seize the opportunity to forge a new foundation? The impending dialogue promised an exploration that could either bring them closer or drive them further apart. As they lingered in the twilight, John's heart raced. He had stepped boldly into unfamiliar territory. But could he navigate the complexities of being a father, healing the rifts, and standing in the face of vulnerability head-on? The most difficult conversations still loomed ahead, and as John looked into Olivia's eyes, he could sense that everything was about to change. The moment was at his fingertips. Would they grasp it together, or would fear tether them back into silence? The moment hung between them, punctuated only by the distant chirping of crickets. Olivia's hesitation mirrored John's own internal turmoil, amplifying the weight of their shared silence. Just as he felt ready to breach the walls separating them, that anxiety surged again, threatening to draw him back into retreating depths of uncertainty. Before you answer, he said, desperate to maintain this fragile connection, I need you to know I'm not trying to fix things instantly. I'm not looking for a magic solution. I just want to understand what you're feeling right now. Olivia's expression shifted slightly, curiosity unveiling a hint of vulnerability. He recognized it as a crack in her armor. I don't know if you can, she replied quietly, almost as though wrestling with her own admission. It's just we don't talk about the hard stuff, Dad. You've always been there, but not really, you know? Her words struck deep, an uncomfortable truth he had avoided confronting. He was there physically, but emotionally? He had often been lost, consumed by work and distraction. You're right, he said earnestly. How can I be better? What do you need from me? It's not just me, she replied softly, glancing towards the park's edge where the last faint light clung tenaciously to the horizon. I need you to understand Ethan too. He not just okay. He is trying to navigate this mess, and sometimes it feels like you're trying to be there, but it's not enough. John's chest constricted. Ethan, his son, caught in the crossfire of his parents' unresolved issues. The instinct to protect surged within him, but this was a moment of confronting the truth, not avoiding it. Tell me about Ethan. What is he going through? Olivia hesitated, fidgeting with the hem of her shirt. He feels lost. He thinks you don't care, really. He sees you working longer hours, always distracted. And when you do show up, it feels like you're just doing it because you feel guilty. Each word felt like daggers, pricking at the remnants of John's defenses. He had tried to rationalize his choices, see them as necessary sacrifices for their future, yet here was his daughter holding him accountable for the very distance he had wished to bridge. I never meant for him to feel that way. I thought I was doing what was best. But were you? Olivia pressed, her voice gaining strength. Dad, actions speak louder than intentions. You might think you're providing for us, but what we need is you. The real you. The one that doesn't hide behind work. Her words revealed an unsettling clarity, igniting a flicker of self-awareness deep within him. He had too often used work as a shield, drowning in responsibility while neglecting the emotional labor of being a present father. You're right, he conceded, swallowing hard. I don't have all the answers, and I certainly haven't been the father you deserve. But I want to know how to change that. I don't want to lose you or Ethan. A moment passed a fulcrum of possibility. In that fragile pause, he could feel an undercurrent of hope flowing between them, fueled by honesty and raw emotion. John dared to step further into the unknown. I want to try. You both mean everything to me. Just promise me that if I mess up again, you'll tell me. I will, Olivia said, her eyes glistening in the dim light. But you have to promise to listen. Their pact hung in the air, binding them tighter in mutual resolve. As twilight deepened, a spectrum of colors painted their surroundings symbolic of the change they sought to embrace. What if it's too hard? She asked, her vulnerability wrapped tightly with apprehension. We take it one step at a time, John replied, a newfound steadiness in his voice. Together. Yet, even as hope blossomed, a thorn of lingering doubt pricked at him. Could he truly rise to this challenge, slowly unearthing the father he had lost in the pursuit of success? The path ahead seemed treacherous, filled with potential pitfalls and heartaches, but the promise of discovery glimmered just ahead. As they lingered in the gathering darkness, John's thoughts spiraled. Could he transcend not just his past failures, but consciously choose to step into the light? The dialogue with Olivia stirred something within him, igniting a determination he hadn't recognized he possessed, but with every promise, there lingered the question, was he strong enough to keep it? Just as he felt the weight of resolve solidifying within him, the call of the night brought an echo, a reminder of the battles yet to surface. Would their next conversation deepen this connection, or would his past mistakes creep in once again to sabotage their newfound intimacy? The door to understanding creaked open, but the path wasn't yet clear. The next morning brought a stark contrast to the previous night's emotional exchange. John awoke with a knot in his stomach, the kind that accompanied the enormous weight of expectation. The morning sun streamed through his bedroom window, illuminating the disarray of papers and schedules still piled high on his desk from a week of long hours at work. He stared at those documents, each a reminder of his past choices, his relentless pursuit of success that had created such a chasm between him and his children. As he prepared for the day, John's thoughts clenched tighter around Olivia's words, echoing in the back of his mind. Actions speak louder than intentions. What did that actually mean for him? He couldn't afford to let another day slip by where he demonstrated care through mere physical presence, absent of genuine emotional investment. He needed to plan a tangible path toward reconnecting with Olivia and Ethan. Making a decision, he grabbed his phone and texted his assistant to reschedule the back-to-back meetings he had planned for the day. Family comes first, he typed before hitting send, his heart racing. It was a small step, but it was a step toward prioritizing his family. When he arrived at the kitchen, the tantalizing smell of pancakes greeted him. Olivia was already seated at the table, the flicker of her eyes revealing an expectation, perhaps wondering if he meant what he had said. Morning, she greeted, glancing between the plate of food and his slightly disheveled appearance. Morning, kiddo, he replied, forcing a smile that felt somewhat foreign. Got any plans today? I thought I'd study for my maths test, she said, shrugging nonchalantly, though he could sense there was more she wanted to share. Maybe some practice roles for the school play later. His heart surged at the casual earnestness in her response. I'd love to hear about your parts in the play. Why don't we do a little study session together? I can help with the math problems. Her soft smile illuminated the kitchen, a tiny breakthrough, though John could still feel the shadows of their unspoken challenges hanging over them. Sure, I guess, she replied, a faint hint of reluctance gripping her enthusiasm. As the minutes passed, he noticed her initial excitement began to fade, revealing the subtle tension beneath a reminder that it would take more than just a single morning of connection to mend the frayed bonds between them. How's Ethan doing? He asked, trying to navigate the conversation toward her brother without sounding overbearing. He's okay, I guess. He plays video games with his friends a lot. He says it helps him forget, she replied, her gaze clouded. What does he need from me? John probed gently, feeling urgency yet realizing this one about earning brownie points with his kids. This was about being present, open, and real. Honestly? Olivia hesitated before continuing. He needs you to just be there more. Watch a game with him, talk about school, and really listen. Being around without being present is just lonely. The honesty struck him like a bolt. Loneliness wrapped within a web of his good intentions. John felt the emotional weight descend upon him, a burden he'd created himself yet held tightly across all their relationships. "I will, I promise," he said, determination flooding his voice. He finished the pancakes with Olivia, their casual banter turning into a narrative where laughter and honesty began to flow in equal measures. It was heartening, a glimmer of hope. Yet, the darker shadows of his past decisions loomed, reminding him of structures built on neglect. Later that afternoon, he earned a glimmer of inspiration by observing the way Olivia helped a younger neighbor with homework. Her patience and gentleness revealed talents he hadn't fully recognized before. If she could foster connection with others so easily, perhaps it was time he learned from her. Encouraged, he texted Ethan, inviting him to join in a simple game later. A tentative attempt to bridge the distance he felt more fragile than he wanted to admit. The anticipation coursed through his veins, tinged with apprehension. Would they find that common ground he yearned for, or would Ethan rebuke his effort altogether? John's phone buzzed, the response uncertain. But as he glanced at the clock, he felt a subtle shift within himself. Change was tangible, real, and slowly unfolding. But would he be equipped to handle the emotional turmoil that came along with it? He could sense a wave of confrontation brewing ahead. The real challenge awaited, facing his son head-on, listening to fears he could no longer ignore. Would he cascade toward yet another misunderstanding, or rise to the challenge of open-hearted connection? The moment of truth loomed closer, and he steeled himself, determined not to fall back into the shadows of his past. The afternoon dragged on with an unyielding intensity, each tick of the clock amplifying John's anticipation mixed with trepidation. The game he had suggested to Ethan loomed in his mind, framing itself as both a potential bonding moment and a possible disaster. Pacing back and forth in his living room, he considered how to create an inviting space for Ethan, a place where they wouldn't just engage in gameplay, but could also navigate the emotional labyrinth that had built up between them. He pushed aside the lingering doubts about whether he could actually pull this off. John inhaled deeply, grounding himself in the weight of Olivia's words. His son needed him, and this was an opportunity, a bridge he could build toward a more genuine connection. Taking a cue from the way Olivia connected with others, he grabbed his phone, scrolling through a myriad of messages to find the game he had in mind. It was layered with complexity yet approachable enough for a casual player like Ethan. He considered how the game could serve as a platform for dialogue, a mechanism for playfully interacting without the heaviness of direct confrontation hovering over them. As the hour approached, he tidied the coffee table, laying out snacks, small offerings that felt somewhat trivial but were crafted with the intention of comfort. He needed this to feel like a genuine invitation, not a forced obligation. John acknowledged the rumbles of self-doubt. Would the facade of just hanging out truly be enough to allow his son to feel comfortable? Would he be able to hide his own anxiety, or would Ethan see right through him? These questions swirled, each more troubling than the last. Yet he reminded himself that the past was set, but today was unwritten. He could influence what was to come. Moments before Ethan arrived, John felt the familiar knot tighten again. He fidgeted with his phone, checking the time obsessively until the door finally creaked open. Ethan stepped inside, his expression unreadable beneath layers of teenage indifference, yet John caught the flicker of surprise when he noticed the setup. What's with the snacks?" Ethan asked, his tone tinged with skepticism. "I thought we could chill and play a game together," John responded, attempting a casual, welcoming tone, one that belied the anxious flutter in his stomach. "You know, just hang out." There was a pause, a brief standoff of sorts where John read through a range of emotions crossing Ethan's face: curiosity, frustration, and perhaps a bit of hope. But that hope teetered dangerously close to cynicism. "All right," Ethan said finally, stepping further inside as John gestured toward the couch. They settled into a comfortable space, and as he passed Ethan the controller, John's mind raced through the various outcomes they might encounter during their time together. As the game started, the initial intensity of competition did wonders in breaking the ice. Laughter rumbled between them, the kind that felt warm yet fragile, like the first thaw after winter. Conversation sparkled in and out. Ethan shared comments on the game's mechanics, while John enjoyed the sound of his son's laughter echoing through the room. These were the moments he had missed, glimpses into his son's world that felt vital yet fleeting. Yet, just as they began to relish this newfound connection, John could sense a shift in Ethan's demeanor. The laughter faded to awkward silence as they reached a particularly intense part of the game, and a shadow flicked across Ethan's face. It was subtle but palpable, the reminder that underneath the laughter lay the unresolved tensions of their relationship. "Dad," Ethan's voice broke the silence, and the room felt like it had filled with the weight of 1,000 unasked questions. "Why haven't you been around?" That question thudded heavily within John's chest, a confrontation he had both feared and anticipated. It was a moment encapsulating years of neglect and distancing, an opportunity to face the past and the uncomfortable truth that had lingered, one he could no longer duck or hide from. The moment of truth had arrived, and John prepared himself to respond, determined not to slip back into the shadows of his prior indifference. Would he stumble through a half-hearted explanation, or would he open up, revealing his own vulnerabilities and genuine desire to reconnect? As he struggled to formulate a response, another part of him whispered that this could be the catalyst for change, not just for himself, but for Ethan as well. Would this exchange unravel everything they needed to confront, or would it send them spiraling into more misunderstandings? Before he could answer, the doorbell rang once more, announcing the arrival of yet another unexpected visitor, someone who could either assist him in this moment of reckoning or complicate it further. The tension in the air thickened, leaving John wondering what would unfold next. Would he have the strength to remain open when the time came to confront the deeper issues at play? John's heart raced as he glanced at the door. The icy grip of anxiety tightened around him. Who could be interrupting this pivotal moment? He caught Ethan's eye, uncertainty mirrored in his son's expression. "Should we get that?" Ethan asked, his voice barely a whisper, as if the weight of the question mattered more than the act itself. "Yeah, let me check." John stood up, the controller slipping from his fingers, the charming atmosphere dissipating like a puff of smoke. He reached the door and opened it, revealing Olivia standing with a warm but puzzled smile. "Sorry to drop in unannounced," she said, her voice a gentle balm against the crackling tension in the room. "I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd say hi." John's mind raced. Olivia was the last person he wanted to see now. While her presence could lighten his mood, it also threatened to complicate the hard conversation that loomed ahead. Yet, she carried a familiarity, a reassuring presence that inexplicably warmed him. He hesitated. We're kind of in the middle of something, just a game, right?" Her smile didn't falter, and her eyes sparked with understanding. "Mind if I join?" Ethan, now with an amused grin, piped up, "The more, the merrier, I guess." Reluctantly, John stepped aside, allowing her in. The air shifted slightly, he could feel walls he'd built up against Olivia begin to crack. Maybe her inclusion could help ease the pressure. As Olivia walked in and nestled herself on the couch, she casually commandeered a controller and quickly absorbed the game's mechanics, her ability to adapt apparent and instantaneous. John watched Ethan light up in her presence, a natural connection forming that only deepened his internal turmoil. Questions flooded John's mind. Why was this suddenly so difficult? Was he worried about Olivia's influence on Ethan more than nourished? But he quickly salvaged that line of thinking. Olivia could be an ally in this, teasing and laughter would create levity. "All right, team," she declared, cutting through the silence, "let us show Dad how it's done." The game resumed, and slowly, laughter began to fill the space again, turning a once tense atmosphere into something lighter. Yet, John felt a deeper nagging worry simmer beneath the surface. He stole glances at Ethan, who was cheering and bantering with Olivia. Their laughter, shining yet bitter, reminded him of all that he had missed with both of them. As they played, John relied on humor, trying to match Ethan and Olivia's banter and lift his own spirit. The competition was fierce, yet it felt hollow, a distraction. They were not just playing, they were masking vulnerabilities and insecurities that could no longer remain hidden. After several matches, with the scoreboard swinging back and forth, John finally captured a moment of quiet. As laughter roared around him, he caught Ethan's pensive gaze across the room. That fleeting look, the kind vulnerable yet charged with tension, ignited a deeper urge within John, urging him to push past the distractions. "Ethan," John finally said, the laughter quieting to a murmur, his voice breaking through the noise. "Can we talk just for a minute?" For a split second, the room froze. Olivia shifted slightly, sensing the gravity returning to the space. John's heart thundered. Would Ethan understand that this wasn't simply a father trying to regain lost time, but rather a man deeply committed to growing and changing? Sure, Ethan replied slowly, uncertainty creeping into his voice as he grabbed the edge of the couch. Olivia's presence lingered like an uninvited guest, the distraction that he needed but also a reminder of how unsteady his stable ground felt. John took a breath, preparing to unearth the deeper conversations that the game had merely teased at. Could he find the right words to tear down barriers built by years of neglect? Each second felt like an eternity as he faced Ethan, an invisible line drawn between them, a line that could soon buckle or strengthen. Just as he began to grasp at his thoughts, the doorbell rang again, resonating like a drumbeat within. Him. Could it be another unexpected visitor, or was this a sign from the universe that he risked too much? With hesitation bubbling in his chest, John walked back toward the door, knowing that whatever lay behind it might either shatter this delicate moment or forge a new path forward. Would he find the strength to face whatever challenge awaited him outside, or would it draw him further from the connection he so desperately sought to reclaim? John paused, his hand hovering over the doorknob. The doorbell rang once more, a rhythmic insistence that felt almost mocking now. He hesitated, caught in a web of anxiety and urgency, his mind racing through what could lie beyond that door. Was it merely a friend dropping by, or something that would plunge them back into chaotic emotional territory? He swallowed hard. As he turned the knob and pulled the door open, his breath caught. There stood a tall man in a sharp suit, his shoulders broad and his expression demanding. John recognized him instantly. Nathan, a former colleague and rival from the corporate world, stood grinning like a Cheshire cat. John! Long time no see. Nathan boomed, his voice echoing against the walls. Hey, Nathan, John replied, forcing a smile. Deep down, he braced for Nathan's inevitable probing questions, the kind that usually clawed at the remnants of his self-worth. Mind if I come in? Nathan asked, his gaze drifting over John's shoulder, curiosity glinting in his eye as he sized up the scene inside. Ethan's eyes darted between them, sensing the tension before it fully registered. John stood backed against reality, the weight of the moment suffocating. He could either invite this old competitiveness into the space or shut the door on it. Part of him wanted the familiarity, the sheer normalcy Nathan brought, hoping it could drive away his swirling doubts. However, another part screamed that opening that door too wide could erase the progress he was desperately trying to cultivate. Before he could answer, Nathan stepped inside, nonchalantly pushing through with an assertiveness John both resented and admired. Got a second? Nathan flashed a grin that failed to mask the curiosity lurking behind it. I've got an opportunity you might want to hear about. Olivia instinctively turned to Ethan, her amusement shifting into concern. They exchanged glances filled with unspoken questions about this unexpected visitor and John's internal battle. John felt his defenses rising. Actually, we were in the middle of something, he affirmed, trying to maintain the fragile atmosphere he'd begun to construct. Oh, come on. We're all adults here, Nathan chuckled, winking at Olivia as if she held the key to easing John's worries. Anyway, Ethan deserves to hear what's happening in his dad's life, right? Ethan shifted uncomfortably, caught in the frenzy of adult conversation. John looked at him, reading the tension etched on his son's features. A single thought crystallized in his mind: the very conversation he was about to have with Ethan could never materialize if he let Nathan's presence consume them. John needed clarity. No, Nathan, he interjected firmly, his voice carrying a weighted hand he possessed earlier. This is important. Ethan and I need some space right now. John's eyes softened as he locked them with Ethan's. The vulnerability he'd seen before now sparked in a glimmer of understanding. Perhaps, just perhaps, this confrontation would be the catalyst they both needed. Resentment flickered in Nathan's expression, but John didn't care. He had made a choice. He was asserting control over his life, a life that no longer revolved around Nathan's demands or the noisy corporate sharks. Fine, fine, Nathan scoffed, backing off but not without a glimmer of disbelief crossing his face. I'll be in touch, though. He turned to leave, casting a lingering glance over his shoulder, the words unspoken but loaded with significance. As the door closed behind Nathan, the tension shifted. John sensed the weight lifting slightly, not entirely, but enough for him to feel the resolve settle back in. Uncertainty still crackled in the air, but now it felt like an opportunity. Ethan, he said, taking a step toward his son, we can talk now. We need to be honest with each other. fear mixed with anticipation in his veins as he braced himself to confront the consequences of his choices, the possibility of their unfolding future together dawning brightly amidst the shadows. Yet just as he was about to begin, the doorbell rang again, breaking through their moment like a thunderclap. This time, however, the urgency felt different. Now it hinted not just at disruption, but at decisions that could challenge everything he thought he knew. Could it lead to the answers he was seeking, or would it push him further down a road he wasn't ready to traverse? With a determined breath, John prepared himself to confront whatever lay beyond that door, understanding that each hurdle he faced brought him closer to the man he wanted to become. The real question lingered: would he be able to seize this chance, or would he falter again? John stood framed in the doorway, absorbing the weight of the moment as he prepared himself for the unexpected visitor. His heart raced. Hadn't this day been one of breakthroughs? He'd been on the verge of deeper connection with Ethan, and now this lingering tension was poised to stretch into uncertainty again. He opened the door, greeted by a familiar face, his business mentor, Richard, a man of vast experience whose reputation for unraveling complex matters preceded him. "John. I hope I'm not interrupting," Richard stated, his tone blending casualness with sincere concern. John swallowed. The urge to slam the door fell away. "No, not at all," he forced a smile. "We were just wrapping up a game." "Great. Mind if I join?" Richard stepped in, scanning the room, already calculating potential benefits from John's newfound familial endeavors. The door of opportunity swung wide, yet a sense of unease washed over him. Richard was keenly perceptive and dismissively assertive, qualities that once inspired John. Now, they felt intrusive, like layers of professional distance that could overshadow the personal connections he had been so desperately trying to forge. "No," John said, the firmness surprising even himself. "Not right now. I need to focus on my family." The words rolled off his tongue with an unexpected confidence, wrapping around a realization that had finally crystallized: his professional life would not dictate his personal values anymore. Richard raised an eyebrow, taken aback. "Is everything all right? You've been distant since." John cut him off. "I'm working on things at home." He took a breath, clarifying. "Honesty is important to me now. I can't keep dodging what truly matters." An electrifying moment hung in the air, a stark contrast to the corporate chatter that had once been second nature to him. Richard's expression softened slightly. "I respect that, John. But remember, business opportunities don't wait." "I know," John replied, "and I've had plenty in the past. But success isn't measured by deals anymore. It's about being present for my kids. I can't drown in work when the lives of those I love are at stake." Ethan stood watching, inner turmoil replacing the earlier excitement. John could sense the weight of his son's scrutiny, felt the expectation linger in the air. Richard sighed, stepping back, visibly impressed yet conflicted. "Well, you've made your choice. Just don't let it cost you." Before Richard could finish, John turned and faced Ethan squarely. "Today is about us," he asserted with a resolve that felt sturdy. "I am committed to being here fully." Ethan visibly relaxed, perhaps seeing the sincerity behind his father's intentions. John could feel radiant warmth from this shift, a flicker of hope igniting within their cocoon of discomfort. Behind that induction, understanding began to weave its delicate threads. "I'm ready to talk," John said, directing his gaze towards Ethan with earnest longing. "I want to understand what you've been feeling. What you need from me." After moments that felt endless, he saw vulnerability open up in Ethan's eyes, the truth finally emerging from behind walls built over years. This was the moment that could define their relationship, a turning point crystallized in this unexpected clarity. John took a seat across from his son. "Let us do this together," he stated softly, allowing the sincerity of his voice to diffuse the heavy tension. "Let us share what's really happening between us." His son took a deep breath, the tension visibly lifting as he opened up. "I just want us to be close, Dad. It feels like you're always doing other stuff instead of hanging out with me." John nodded as Ethan spoke, absorbing his son's feelings. "I haven't done a good job of showing you that I care," he admitted. "But I promise, I am changing. I won't let that happen again." Their conversation flowed, deepening as trust tangled more tightly between them. They shared frustrations, dreams, and fond memories, weaving an emotional tapestry John had long neglected. The walls of misunderstanding began to crumble, revealing the vibrant connection that lived within both of them, ready for nurture and growth. As their exchange unfolded, John felt transformed. A new man emerged from the shadows of his previous existence. He was no longer merely a business executive craving success, he was a father willing to invest in the present. Vulnerability now felt empowering, no longer something to hide from. Ethan looked at his dad, a newfound smile blossoming on his face. "So what now?" he asked, sparking an idea in John. "How about we establish a standing family game night?" John proposed. "We'll try something new together, chat about our week. Can we pledge to keep it real, to be honest with each other?" "Absolutely." Ethan grinned, an electrifying spark of excitement returning. "Let us do it." John echoed, feeling gratitude swelling inside, cascading onward into a resolute state of fulfillment. Their dialogue punctuated unknowns with burgeoning possibilities, a heart and a mind united in love's earnest resurgence. When vulnerability emerged, understanding followed suit. As the sun dipped below the horizon, John glimpsed the potential of each day ahead. A path saturated with authenticity stretched before them, unmarred by fears of inadequacy or past mistakes. This was the moment he had conquered his greatest battle, the journey inward, revealing the strength not of ambition but of familial love. The victories would no longer reside solely in corporate accolades. They found their home in laughter, shared moments, love, and especially connection with those that he cared about most. John breathed deeply, feeling an inner calm flourish. He had bridged the divide and expanded into a realm where professional success met personal fulfillment, allowing them to coexist harmoniously. Everything was unfolding as it should, with clarity and confidence reflected in each of their eyes. John had achieved something tangible, a reconstruction of bonds, a commitment to nurture the relationships he had neglected for too long. Ethan's smile mirrored the joy bubbling within John's heart. And in that moment, as the world outside faded into an array of colors, a simple truth washed over him: love was his greatest achievement, the foundation that would sustain him and his family. The war for connection had finally yielded fertile ground for growth. As they nestled into lighthearted banter once again, John's resolve crystallized into action. The shadows of insecurity fell away, leaving everyone in a state of hopeful clarity, ready to embrace the future. Now was the moment to sustain their shared aspirations, and John knew there was much more to say, countless lessons to learn. And so, John Parker's CEO, father, and man stood anchored in fulfillment. Every hesitation stripped bare, every promise written anew. This was just the beginning. Before we conclude today, here's an urgent message for you. You need to subscribe now to our channel. This is the moment to show your support and not miss our next exclusive emotional stories that will continue to inspire you and those around you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us reach more souls who need to hear these transformative tales. Comment below with your thoughts on this conclusion or share your own journeys of change and connection. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful transformation. Don't wait even one more second to share these uplifting stories. You're part of a community that values personal growth, and your support matters. Let us inspire the world together.